Chapter 1: The Heartbeat Beneath the Marble. Welcome back to the channel, where the shadows speak louder than prayers. If you're here in the quiet hours, lights low and the world finally asleep, you already know we only open doors that were meant to stay locked. Tonight we descend beneath the holiest city on earth and listen for something that has been waiting a very long time. Settle deeper under the covers, breathe slow, and whatever you do, don't press your ear to the floor just yet. The Basilica is never truly empty, even when the last tourist has been herded out. When the great doors are chained and the Swiss guards change shift with the soft click of halberds, something else remains, something that has been here longer than the bronze baldacchino, longer than Michelangelo's dome, longer than Peter himself. It is 3:33 in the morning on a night in late October 2023, and the air inside St. Peter's is colder than the stone has any right to be. Father Luca Moretti, 28, American, still too new to the Eternal City to trust its silences, moves alone across the crossing. Beneath Bernini's twisted columns, his rubber-soled shoes make no sound on the polychrome marble. In his right hand, he carries a soft cloth and a small bottle of sacred oil. His left hand holds a battery lantern that throws a weak, trembling circle of gold. He is polishing the papal altar. It is a humble task given to the youngest seminarians, a penance wrapped in honor. The altar stands directly above the tomb of the first pope, or so they teach. Luca likes the solitude. Back home in Boston, he never had silence like this, thick, syrupy silence that you could almost taste on the tongue. He likes the way the lantern light slides across the inlaid cosmetesque floors, the way the vast nave swallows every footstep until he feels like the only living soul in Christendom. He kneels, presses the cloth to the cold marble, and begins the slow, circular motion that generations of hands have repeated before him. One circle, two. Then the floor answers. A pulse. Not a sound at first, more a pressure. A single, deliberate throb that travels up through the stone, through the rubber of his shoes, through the bones of his knees, and settles behind his sternum like a second heart trying to remember its rhythm. Luca freezes. The lantern trembles in his grip. Shadows leap across the baldacchino 40 feet above him, the great bronze canopy twisting like something caught in a slow, underwater storm. He waits. 10 seconds, 20, nothing. Just the faint scent of beeswax and centuries of incense clinging to the air. He laughs under his breath, nervous, too loud in the emptiness, and returns to his polishing. Circle, circle, throb, stronger this time. A wet, meaty push, as if something enormous on the other side of the marble has leaned its weight against the world and decided to nudge. Luca's cloth stops mid-motion. The oil drips from the bottle in a single, lazy bead that lands beside his knee and spreads like blood. Throb, throb, 2 beats, slower than his own racing pulse, deeper, older. He sets the lantern down and places both palms flat on the floor. The marble is warm. Warm in one small circle, no wider than a dinner plate, directly beneath the altar, warm and slick. He lifts his right hand. A thin film of something dark and viscous clings to his skin, catching the lantern light with a wet, crimson gleam. His breath fogs in front of him even though the air has turned suddenly humid, like that exhalation of a tomb. Above him, the bronze baldacchino, 130 tons of twisted metal commissioned by a Borgia Pope, gives a single, tortured groan. Luca looks up from the underside of the canopy, where no bird has ever nested and no tourist's camera has ever reached. A single drop detaches itself. It falls slowly, impossibly slowly, spinning as it descends, catching the lantern light like a ruby. It strikes his cheek just below the left eye, warm, thicker than water. It tastes of iron and old communion wine when he instinctively touches his tongue to his lip. The heartbeat beneath the floor answers immediately. 3 rapid knocks, like something delighted to be noticed at last. Luca scrambles backward, lantern clattering, oil bottle rolling away into darkness. His back slams against the confessor railing. Somewhere in the blackness beyond the high altar, a chain rattles softly, as if someone very far below has shifted position. He sits there, chest heaving, staring at the small red smear on his fingertips. The warmth under the marble fades as quickly as it came. The air returns to its usual winter bite. Only the single drop on his cheek remains, cooling slowly, tracing a path toward the corner of his mouth like a tear that belongs to someone else. He does not wipe it away. Not yet. Instead, he crawls forward again, drawn by the same curiosity that once made him sneak into his grandmother's attic to read forbidden books about saints who bled from the eyes. The lantern shows him something he has never noticed before, though he has polished this spot a dozen times. Beneath the papal altar, half hidden by centuries of wax drippings and the shadows of candlesticks, there is a maintenance hatch, iron, square, no handle, only a keyhole shaped like an inverted cross. The marble around it is scarred with thousands of tiny scratches, as if generations of fingernails have clawed at the edges, trying to pry it open from below. Luca leans closer. The air that sighs up from the seam is warmer than his own breath, and it carries a smell he cannot place, wet earth after rain, mixed with something coppery and intimate, like the inside of a mouth. He presses his ear to the cold metal. For a long moment there is nothing. Then, so faint he thinks he imagines it, a single heartbeat answers his own, thump, thump, perfectly synchronized, as if whatever lies beneath has been waiting all night for someone, anyone, to lean in and listen. Luca jerks back. The lantern flickers once, twice, then steadies. In the renewed light, it sees his own reflection in the polished bronze of a nearby candelabrum, pale, wide-eyed, a streak of blood drying on his cheek like war paint. He should report this. He should wake the rector. He should pray. Instead, he takes out his phone, thumbs shaking, and starts recording. The heartbeat beneath the marble continues, slow, patient, eternal. Somewhere in the distance, far above in the dome, a pigeon coos once and falls silent, as if it too has heard something it was never meant to hear. Luca whispers to the camera, voice barely louder than the hush of his own blood in his ears. Guys, if you're listening to this at night, right now, pause the video, go on, I'll wait. Put the phone down, press your ear to the floor, wherever you are, and tell me, in the comments, do you feel it too? The heartbeat beneath St. Peter's answers him with a single, approving thud that echoes all the way up into the empty nave, and for the first time in 12 centuries, something down there smiles in the dark. Chapter 2: The American Who Should Never Have Stayed the Night. The rectory corridor smells of boiled cabbage and candle smoke, the way all old Roman buildings smell after midnight. Luca's room is a narrow monk's cell on the 3rd floor of the Casa Santa Marta. Window cracked open just enough for the October wind to carry the distant hum of the city. His phone sits charging on the small wooden desk, screen still smeared with the faint red thumbprint he hasn't dared wipe away. He hasn't slept. How could he? Every time he closes his eyes, he feels the marble throb again. That slow, deliberate push against his kneecaps, as if the Basilica itself has grown a second heart and decided to test it while no one was looking. He thumbs the screen awake. 3:31. 2 minutes? He knows what's coming. At the 03:33, the heartbeat will return. He is sure of it now. Not imagination, not fatigue. Something under the floor is keeping time with the city's oldest clock. Luca opens the voice memo app and stares at the 37-second recording he made an hour ago. The waveform looks innocent enough, a flat line broken by 2 soft peaks, like a sleeping animal turning over in its den. He presses play, nothing at normal speed except the faint rustle of his own cassock and the distant creak of Bernini's bronze. He drags the speed slider to 3x. The rustle becomes a hiss. The creak becomes a scream of tortured metal. And then, threaded between the 2 peaks, so soft it could almost be a glitch in the microphone, a child's voice whispers, "Atirum, acu el retaf," his full name, backwards, perfectly timed to the exact moment the second heartbeat struck the marble. The phone slips from his fingers and clatters to the tile. Luca does not pick it up. He is already at the door, barefoot, cassock half-buttoned, running. The corridor's empty, lit only by the red glow of the exit sign. Somewhere, a radiator knocks like a dying man trying to clear his throat. He takes the stairs 2 at a time, past the common room where the old Polish priests play cards until dawn, past the laundry room that always smells of bleach and incense. He needs to tell someone, anyone. He finds Sister Chiara in the archive vestibule, the one place still lit at this hour. She is kneeling before a cart of returned books, her veil a white comma in the darkness. Chiara is 33, Roman-born, with the kind of quiet that makes you speak in whispers even when you're angry. The Vatican calls her the night librarian. The seminarians call her the ghost who never sleeps. She looks up when his shadow falls across the marble. "Luca?" Her voice is soft, but there is iron in it. "You're bleeding?" He touches his cheek. The drop from the baldacchino has crusted over, a tiny black scab shaped like a tear. "I heard something," he says. Under the altar, a heartbeat, and then he thrusts the phone toward her. "Listen." Chiara does not take it. Instead, she stands, slowly, the way people do when they're trying not to startle a wild animal. "Some doors were bricked up for a reason, Luca." She glances toward the elevator that leads down to the necropolis level, the one marked Riservato, Sacri Scavi. Some floors were poured thicker than others. Some altars were placed exactly where they are, because what lies beneath must never be directly beneath open sky. He stares at her. You knew? I know the stories the stone tells when no one else is listening. She reaches out, not for the phone, but for his wrist, turning his palm upward. There, in the center, is a perfect circle of dried blood, no bigger than a communion host. You touched the warm spot. It burned, he whispers. It remembers, she corrects. From the corridor behind them comes the soft ding of the ancient elevator arriving at their floor. The gates rattle open. No one is inside, but the smell that drifts out is unmistakable now. Wet earth, frankincense, and something copper sweet, like a butcher's shop left closed for too long. Kiara's grip tightens. You woke it? I didn't mean... Intentions don't matter to what's down there. She pulls him away from the elevator, toward the small side chapel no tourist ever sees. Come, there's someone you need to meet before you decide whether to keep listening. They move quickly through corridors lit only by flickering sconces. Portraits of long-dead cardinals watch them pass with painted eyes that seem to follow. Somewhere water drips in a steady, patient rhythm. Thump, thump. Luca freezes. The heartbeat again. But they are 3 floors up now, far from the Basilica. It's inside the walls. Kiara doesn't stop. She knows the sound better than her own pulse. They reach a heavy oak door bound with iron. A brass plate reads Archivio Segreto, Silenzio. She knocks once, waits, knocks twice more. The door opens from within, just a crack. An old man peers out. Monsignor Silvio Ricci is 87, bent like a shepherd's crook, eyes the color of wet ash. His cassock is threadbare at the cuffs, stained with ink and something darker. He looks at Luca, then at the blood on his cheek, and sighs the way a man sighs when the phone rings at 3 a.m. And he already knows who's dead. So, the Monsignor rasps, voice like parchment dragged across stone. The American who should never have stayed the night. Ricci steps aside. The room beyond is a cave of books. Towering shelves disappear into shadow. The air is thick with dust and the faint, sweet rot of old vellum. A single green banker's lamp glows on a desk buried under manuscripts. In the corner stands an ancient, reel-to-reel tape recorder, its spools slowly turning, even though no one has touched it. From the speaker leaks a sound Luca knows too well. Thump, thump, perfectly synchronized with the pulse he now feels in his own throat. Ricci closes the door behind them. The lock clicks like a jaw snapping shut. Sit, he says, before it learns your name the right way around. Luca sits. On the desk in front of him is an open ledger bound in dark red leather. No title, no gold lettering, just a faint raised pattern on the cover that might once have been a coat of arms or a brand. Ricci notices him staring. Liber Carnis Papae, he whispers. The book of the Pope's flesh, written in the blood of those who volunteered to keep it quiet. He turns the page with fingers that tremble only slightly. The ink is brown now, but Luca can smell it still. Iron and old wine. At the top of the page, in a careful Carolingian hand, is a single line dated Christmas Day, 800 A.D., Hodie Carolus. Magnus descended et pavit illum. Today Charlemagne descended and fed it. Below that, every 33 years. Another name, Pope Leo III, Pope Pascal I, it's Pope Formosus. His name scratched out so violently the parchment is torn. and at the bottom, in fresh red ink that has not yet dried, 2023, Angelo Bellini, Cardinale. Luca's mouth goes dry. That's next year, he says. Ricci smiles without humor. Seasons move faster beneath the ground. From the tape recorder, the heartbeat suddenly doubles in speed. Thump, 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 thump. Chiara crosses herself. Ricci leans close enough that Luca can smell the anise on his breath. Tell me, Father Moretti, the old man whispers, when you played the recording backwards, did it say anything else? Luca's blood turns to ice. He hadn't played it backwards. He had only sped it up. The Monsignor reaches past him and presses a button on the ancient recorder. The heartbeat slows, reverses, and from the speakers, in the clear, piping voice of a child who has never seen sunlight, come 6 words that make the walls themselves seem to inhale. Father Luca Moretti, come closer, please. The green lamp flickers once and dies. In the sudden darkness, the heartbeat is no longer coming from the tape. It is coming from inside Luca's own chest, perfectly synchronized, perfectly hungry. Chapter 3, The Last Living Witness. The secret archive smells like a crypt that has learned to read. Rows of shelves rise into darkness, heavy with the weight of 1,000,000 sealed tongues. The air is so dry it drinks the moisture from your eyes, yet somehow it still tastes of iron and wet stone. A single bulb on a frayed cord swings overhead, painting slow arcs of sickly yellow across mountains of vellum and parchment that have not felt sunlight since the fall of Constantinople. Monsignor Ricci moves ahead of them like a crooked shadow, his cane tapping out a rhythm that is almost, but not quite, in time with the heartbeat Luca now carries under his ribs. Tap, thump, tap, thump. Chiara keeps one hand on Luca's sleeve, as if afraid the floor might open and swallow him whole. She has not spoken since they left the chapel. Her rosary clicks softly against her habit with every step, a nervous metronome counting down to something neither of them wants to name. Ricci stops before a shelf labeled in faded Latin, Anno Domini DCCM, the year 800 to 899. He does not need to search. His gnarled fingers find the exact drawer as if guided by memory older than his own. Sit, he says again. Though there is no chair, Luca lowers himself to the cold floor. Chiara remains standing, half turned toward the door they came through, as if expecting it to vanish. Ricci pulls out a wooden box the color of dried blood. Inside, wrapped in silk the shade of a corpse's lips, lies a single sheet of parchment no larger than a missal page. The edges are blackened, as though it was rescued from a fire centuries ago and has been trying to finish burning ever since. He lays it on the floor between them with the reverence most priests reserve for the consecrated host. Luca leans forward. The ink is a violent rust red that seems to shift when you try to focus on it. The script is Carolingian minuscule, impossibly neat, the work of a scribe who knew he was writing something that would damn him. Ricci translates in a whisper that scrapes the air like a dull blade. On the eve of the nativity of our Lord, in the year 800, Charles, king of the Franks, descended into the caves beneath the ancient tomb of the fishermen. There, in the place older than Peter, older than Rome herself, he offered what was demanded. With his own blade, he opened the vein, and with his own voice, He spoke the binding words, and that which had hungered since the foundations of the world drank deep and was quieted for a season. Luca's mouth is desert dry. What did he bind? Ricci's eyes glitter in the weak light. Something that was already here when Peter arrived with the keys. Something that watched the first stone of the old basilica laid. Something that learned the taste of apostolic blood and found it pleasing. He turns the parchment over. On the reverse side, someone has added a marginal note in a different hand, hurried, almost frantic. The ink here is darker, fresher, as though written yesterday. It reads, Omnis triginta, tres annis caro nova, every 33 years. New flesh, below that, a list, names, and dates. Some in Latin, some in medieval Italian, some in languages Luca does not recognize. The last legible entry is from 1990, Silvio Ricci, archivista, the old man's own name. Luca stares at the trembling priest. You fed it? Ricci's laugh is a sound like dry leaves scraped across a tombstone. I held the chalice. That's all they asked of me then. I was younger, stronger. I thought one sip would be enough to last my lifetime. His fingers trace the scar that runs from his left wrist to the crook of his elbow, a pale, ridged seam that looks like it was sewn by a blind man. It took more than a sip. Chiara makes a small wounded sound. Luca cannot look away from the parchment. The names seem to writhe when he blinks, as if trying to crawl off the page. He reaches out, slowly, the way you reach toward a snake you're not sure is dead, and touches the marginal note with one fingertip. The parchment is warm, warmer than skin. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the rust-red ink begins to darken, spreading outward from his finger like spilled wine. The parchment drinks something from him. Luca feels it, a sudden cold tug deep in his veins, as if a leech has latched inside his arm. Fresh blood wells up through the fibers, bright arterial red, impossibly vivid against the ancient page. It pools, gathers, forms letters with obscene grace. 2023. The numbers drip once, twice, then stop. The parchment is suddenly heavy, sodden, as if it has soaked up a pint. Ricci snatches it away, but not before 3 drops fall to the stone floor and spread into perfect circles the exact size of communion hosts. Luca stares at his finger. There is no wound, but the cold is spreading up his arm, into his shoulder, toward his heart. Chiara grabs his wrist. Look at me, Luca, look at me. He does. Her eyes are wide, black in the dim light. You've marked yourself, she whispers. It knows your blood now. From somewhere far below, impossible, they are already 3 levels beneath the basilica, comes an answer, a single, wet thud, then another, stronger, go closer, as if whatever is chained down there has just sat up and taken notice. Ricci clutches the bleeding parchment to his chest, like a child with a wounded bird. It was supposed to be Cardinal Bellini next year, he says, voice cracking. He volunteered, signed the book with his own blood. But you... He looks at Luca with something between pity and hunger. You just offered it an appetizer. The swinging bulb overhead flickers, once, twice, then steadies. In the brief darkness, Luca swears he hears breathing, slow, patient, right behind his ear. The exhalation smells of earth and old incense and something copper sweet that makes his stomach lurch. When the light returns, Ricci is already moving, stuffing the parchment back into its box, sliding the drawer shut with shaking hands. We have to get you below the seventh seal before it decides to come up, he mutters. There's still time. There's always time until the 33rd year. Chiara pulls Luca to his feet. Her grip is ice. Below the seventh seal, Luca's voice cracks like a boy's. There's nothing below the necropolis. Ricci turns, eyes luminous with terror and something that might be excitement. That, my young American friend, is what they want you to believe. From the depths of the archive, from shelves that have not been touched since the Borgias, comes the soft rustle of turning pages. No wind, no hand, and then a child's voice, the same one from the recording, singing a Latin nursery rhyme Luca half remembers from seminary. Caro papa e mea, caro papa e mea, give me your flesh and I'll let you pray. The swinging bulb flickers again, this time when the light returns. The drawer Ricci just closed is standing open. The wooden box inside is empty. The parchment is gone, and on the shelf where it rested, written in fresh blood that drips slowly onto the stone below, are 3 words glowing wet and bright. Welcome home, Luca. Chapter 4. The night the Swiss guard vanished without footsteps. The Vatican never sleeps. It only pretends. At 02:17 on the security monitors of the Corpo della Guardia Svizzera Pontificia, 3 red dots blink out of existence inside the Basilica transept. No alarm, no scream. Just 3 Swiss guards, Sergeant Elias Rudlisberger, Corporal Matteo Bergi, and Private Lucas Schmidt, walking their routine midnight patrol with the soft clink of ceremonial halberds against marble that suddenly stops in the command room beneath the Cortile de San Damaso. Captain Romain Fournier watches the screens the way a man watches a loved one slip beneath black water. The footage is crystal clear, high resolution, night vision green. The guards move in perfect formation past the baldacchino. Boots silent on the cosmetesque floor. Elias raises a gloved hand. Pause. Listen. Matteo nods. Lucas tilts his head, the way a dog does when it hears a whistle, only it can perceive. They are directly above the papal altar now, directly above the warm spot Luca Moretti discovered 24 hours earlier. Fournier leans closer to the monitor. He has served 23 years. He has seen popes die, bombs diffused, and tourists faint from heat stroke inside the Sistine Chapel. He has never seen marble breathe. On screen, the floor beneath the 3 guards ripples, not cracks, not shifts, ripples, like the surface of a dark pond disturbed by something rising from below. Elias takes one more step. His boot does not come down. It keeps going, sinking slowly, deliberately, through solid stone as though the marble has turned to warm oil. His knee follows. Then his thigh. The halberd tilts, clatters once against nothing, and vanishes with him. No splash, no struggle, just the soft, wet sound of something swallowing. Matteo and Lucas reach for him at the exact same moment. Their hands pass through the same impossible liquid floor. Within 4 seconds, all 3 men are gone. Only their halberds remain, standing upright in a perfect inverted cross, points buried in the stone as neatly as if planted there by a gardener from hell. The monitors go black. Fournier's coffee cup shatters on the tile. Alarms finally scream. Too late. red strobes painting the corridors the color of fresh slaughter. Boots pound, radios explode with frantic Italian and Swiss German. The Basilica is sealed in under 90 seconds. Every door, every gate, every secret passage the guard has guarded since 1506. Luca is already there. He has not slept since the parchment bled. Chiara dragged him to a safe room in the archives. But safe is a relative word beneath St. Peter's. When the klaxons began, he ran, cassock flapping like broken wings, phone clutched in his hand, recording everything, because recording is the only thing that still feels real. He arrives at the transept with the first wave of guards. The halberds stand exactly as the cameras showed, a perfect inverted cross. The blades buried 6 inches deep in marble that shows no crack, no chip, no sign anything was forced. The air here is thick, humid, smelling of wet earth and melted wax. The temperature has dropped 15 degrees in the last minute. Breath fogs in front of every mouth. Captain Fournier is on his knees, gloved hands hovering above the floor as if it might bite. They walked straight down, he says in French-accented English when he sees Luca's Roman collar, like the stone was water, like it wanted them. Luca kneels beside him. The marble is warm again, warmer than before, and beneath his palm he feels it, the heartbeat, faster now, almost eager, a wet thumping that syncs perfectly with the pulse in his own wrist. Thump, 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 thump. Someone has brought a portable monitor. They replay the security footage on a loop. Over and over, the 3 men sink. Over and over, the halberds clatter into position. On the 7th replay, the footage glitches. For exactly 3.33 seconds, the image freezes on Elias Roethlisberger's face halfway through the floor. His eyes are wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Behind him, rising out of the darkness he is falling into, a shape forms, tall, elongated, wearing the shredded remnants of a papal tiara made of what looks like human ribs. Its face is every pope who ever volunteered, layered one atop the other like translucent masks. It smiles directly into the camera. Then the footage resumes, and the men are gone again. Fournier crosses himself so hard his knuckles crack. Luca's phone vibrates in his pocket. A new voice memo has recorded itself. He didn't press record. He plays it on speaker. Because hiding feels pointless now. The audio is only 4 seconds long. First, the wet dragging sound of something huge moving through earth. Then Elias Roethlisberger's voice, calm, almost conversational, as if he is standing right beside them. Captain, it's beautiful down here. The floor tastes like communion. Tell my wife the baby will have his father's eyes. The message ends with a soft, wet kiss. Every guard in the transept takes 1 step back. The inverted cross of halberds begins to sweat blood from the blades, thick droplets that patter onto the marble and spell, in perfect Latin cursive, 3 more in 33 days. Luca looks up at the baldacchino high above. Another drop detaches itself from the bronze canopy, slow, deliberate, spinning like a red planet. It falls. This time, it lands directly on the screen of his phone. The glass cracks in a perfect inverted cross. From somewhere far below, impossibly far, comes the sound of 3 Swiss guard voices singing the pontifical anthem in perfect harmony, their voices bubbling as if underwater, and beneath it all, faster now, almost joyful, thump, 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 thump. Captain Fournier stands, face the color of ash. No one speaks of this outside these walls, he says, but his voice cracks on the last word because everyone in the transept can feel it now. The heartbeat is no longer under the floor. It is inside every chest in the room, keeping time with something that has just welcomed 3 new voices to its choir. And if you are still listening, wherever you are, press your palm to your own sternum right now. Count the beats. 1, 2. Tell me in the comments. Friends, when did you first notice yours was no longer alone? Chapter 5. The door that was never on any blueprint. The elevator to the Scavi is not on any official map. It hides behind a false panel in the sacristy, the kind of panel that looks like ordinary wood until a magnetic key held only by the San Pietrini custodians and 2 aging cardinals clicks against a hidden plate. Chiara has one of those keys. She stole it from Monsignor Ricci's rosary 3 hours ago while the old man wept over the bleeding parchment. Now, at 4:47 a.m. The Basilica above them is crawling with Swiss Guard search teams who still believe 3 of their brothers are simply missing. Down here, the air changes. It thickens, turns mineral and cold, the way breath turns visible inside a mausoleum in winter. The elevator is a cage of rusted iron, barely large enough for 2. Chiara pulls the gate shut with a clang that echoes like a prison door. The car lurches, drops, the cable groaning as if something on the roof is riding down with them. Luca grips the rail. His phone flashlight cuts a thin white blade through the dark. Floor indicators do not exist. Instead, someone long ago scratched Roman numerals into the metal wall with what might have been a nail. I, 2, thurs, thurs, vis, 6, said. They passed 6 without slowing. Chiara's face is bone pale in the phone glow. We're going below the official necropolis, she whispers. Below the Clementine Chapel, below even the level the archaeologists are allowed to see. The elevator shudders to a stop between VI and 7. The gate refuses to open. For 10 long seconds, nothing happens except the heartbeat, faster now, almost eager, vibrating through the floor of the car. Then the gate slides aside on its own. Beyond is a corridor that should not exist. Raw earthen walls glisten with moisture. The floor is uneven rock, slick with something darker than water. Naked bulbs on a single wire flicker every few meters, throwing epileptic shadows that crawl like insects. Luca steps out first. The smell hits him immediately. Wet clay, old blood, and beneath it all, the sweet rot stink of communion wine left too long in the chalice. Chiara follows, clutching a small silver reliquary on a chain around her neck. Inside, she once told him, is a splinter from the true cross. Tonight it feels warm against her skin. They walk. The heartbeat grows louder with every step. No longer a throb, but a wet, deliberate pumping. The sound of something enormous, trying to stand inside a space too small for it. 20 meters in, the corridor ends at a wall of black iron. A door, not medieval, older. The metal is pitted and scarred, as though it was forged before Rome learned to work iron properly. 7 wax seals the size of saucers march down the center seam, each impressed with a different papal ring. Chiara's flashlight trembles across them. 800, Leo III, 833, Gregory IV, 866, Nicholas I, 899, Stephen the Sixth 932, John the Knuts 965, John the Thane 998, Gregory Voids. Every 33 years, the wax is not red, it is black, veined with threads of dried blood that catch the light like garnet. Luca raises his phone to take a picture. Evidence, he tells himself. Proof that he isn't losing his mind. The flash fires. For one strobed instant, the door is lit like a crime scene. And in that white burst, the metal reveals its secret. Hundreds, no thousands, of human fingernails are embedded in the iron, not hammered in, grown. They protrude from the surface at unnatural angles, some yellowed and ancient, others pink and new, still glistening with quick. A few are still lengthening, pushing out millimeter by millimeter with soft, wet clicks that echo in the sudden silence after the flash. One nail, fresh and shiny, bears a perfect half moon of Luca's own blood under the cuticle, the same blood he lost when the parchment drank from him upstairs. The phone slips from his hand and clatters to the rock, in the darkness that rushes back. The heartbeat beneath their feet gives a single, delighted thud so powerful the floor jumps an inch. Chiara screams, short, sharp, cut off by her own hand over her mouth. Luca snatches the phone up again, flashlight shaking. The fingernails have stopped growing, but one of them, his, has curled forward. Like a finger beckoning, from the other side of the door comes a sound no human throat could make. A low, syrupy chuckle that bubbles up through the seams between the seals, carrying the mingled voices of every pope who ever pressed his ring into that black wax. Chiara backs away until her shoulders hit the earthen wall. Damp soil clings to her veil like grave dirt. "We shouldn't have come," she whispers. "Ricci warned me. The seventh seal is the last one that still holds." Luca cannot look away from the door. His flashlight beam catches something new, etched into the iron between the seals. So shallow it is only visible when the light strikes at the perfect angle, is a single line of Latin in a hand he recognizes from the bleeding parchment upstairs. "Caro papae mea, expectet carnem tuam." Luca, my papal flesh awaits your flesh. Luca, the heartbeat doubles, triples. The floor beneath their feet is no longer rock. It is warm. It is skin, living, breathing skin stretched over something vast and awake beneath. Chiara grabs his arm hard enough to bruise. "Look," she breathes, at the base of the door, where iron meets stone. A thin rivulet of fresh blood is seeping out, spreading toward their shoes in deliberate fingers. It reaches Luca's left foot first, where it touches the leather. The shoe begins to soften, the stitches unraveling as if the blood is unmaking the very idea of separation between outside and inside. Luca jerks back. The blood follows, inching forward, tasting the air. From inside the door comes a sound like 1,000 tongues licking lips. Chiara yanks him. They run. Behind them the heartbeat races to match their footsteps, thundering now, joyful, no longer content to wait behind 7 seals and 13 centuries of careful starvation. The elevator gate stands open, waiting. They throw themselves inside. Chiara slams the emergency button. The car lurches upward, but in the split second before the gate closes, Luca looks back. The black door is bowing outward. The 7th seal, the one from 998, has cracked down the middle. Through the fracture, something wet and white presses. Not a hand. Too many joints. Too many fingers tipped with fingernails, that match the ones embedded in the door. It waves once. The gate clangs shut. The elevator ascends, but the heartbeat does not fade. It rises with them. And if you are still here with me, 5 chapters in the dark, with your earbuds in and the rest of the house asleep, place 2 fingers on your carotid artery. Count carefully. 1, 2, 3. Tell me in the comments. Friends, when exactly did the second rhythm start keeping perfect time with yours? Because whatever is behind that door just learned how many hearts are listening tonight. Chapter 6. The List of the Willing. Monsignor Ricci no longer walks. He is carried by memory and fear in equal measure. They have dragged him from the archives to a forgotten storage crypt beneath the grottos, a place where broken statues of saints go to die. Marble fingers and blind stone eyes stare down from shelves like an audience of the damned. The air here is so thick with dust, it feels like breathing ash. A single candle gutters on a crate, throwing just enough light to make the shadows move when they shouldn't. Luca helps the old man sit on a cracked sarcophagus lid. Chiara stands guard at the iron door, one hand inside her habit, clutching the stolen key like a dagger. Ricci's breathing is wet, labored. The scar on his arm has split open again. A thin line of blood soaking through his sleeve in perfect rhythm with the heartbeat that now lives in all of them. You want the truth? He rasps. The whole rotting truth? Then you'll have it. But once you see the list, there is no unseeing. From inside his cassock, he draws a bundle wrapped in oilcloth black with age. It is heavier than it should be, as though the pages inside have absorbed centuries of screams. He unwraps it with trembling reverence. The book is small, no larger than a missal, but the cover is wrong. Not leather, not vellum, skin, human skin, cured and stretched. The faint blue traces of veins still visible beneath the surface like rivers on an old map. There is no clasp, no lock, only a raised scar across the front where someone once carved a papal tiara with a dull blade. Ricci places it on the sarcophagus between them, Liber Carnis Papae, the book of the Pope's flesh. He does not open it yet. Every 33 years, he begins, voice barely louder than the candle's hiss. It wakes hungry, not for sin, not for souls, for flesh that has worn the fisherman's ring, flesh that has spoken ex cathedra. It believes that if it consumes enough of Peter's successors, it will finally become Peter, and when it does, he laughs. A sound like breaking glass. The keys will open the wrong door. Luca's mouth is desert dry. How long? Since the day Charles the Great knelt in the snow of old St. Peter's and was crowned by a pope too terrified to refuse him. December 25th, 800. The empire needed a holy emperor. The church needed a protector, and something beneath the hill needed dinner. Chiara makes a small wounded sound, but does not look away. Ricci continues. They struck a bargain in the dark, one vicar of Christ, willingly given, every 33 years, Christ's age at death. In return, it would sleep, guard the church from her enemies, whisper victories to popes in their dreams, and the church would keep feeding it. He opens the book. The pages are thin as onion skin, translucent, inked in blood that has never fully dried. Names march down the centuries in different hands, some elegant, some frantic, some written with a finger dipped in the writer's own vein when the quill ran out. Luca leans closer. Leo III, 800 Pascal the Moors, 833, Nicholas of Berwin, 866, Formosus, 896, the name scratched out so violently the page is torn, as though even the book resents what was done to his corpse. John the Between, 932, and on, through the pornocracy, the cadaver synod, the Renaissance, the Reformation, the wars, the scandals, every 33 years a new name, a new volunteer. Some names Luca recognizes from history books. Others have been erased so thoroughly from official records they exist only here, in this book of skin near the bottom, in ink still wet and bright. Angelo Bellini, Cardinale, scheduled 2023, and beneath that, in handwriting Luca knows too well, his own, though he has never seen this page before. Luca Moretti, seminarian, substitute the candle flares. Though there is no draft, Ricci slams the book shut, but it is too late. The cover ripples. The raised tiara scar splits open like a mouth, and from between the pages, something preserved and papery slides out with a soft, wet sound, a tongue, dried, blackened, the size of a child's, but with the musculature of a man. It lands on the sarcophagus lid with a faint plop and begins to move, curling, uncurling, tasting the air like a blind worm. It speaks, not with air, with memory, a voice that is every pope who ever volunteered, layered and echoing, issuing from the desiccated muscle as it flexes against the stone. Fratres, the flesh is willing, but the spirit is starving. Luca stumbles back, knocking over the candle. Wax splatters across the book like white blood. In the sudden darkness, the tongue keeps speaking, faster now, the words slithering into Latin, into Aramaic, into languages that hurt to hear. Chiara's scream is cut short by her own hand. Ricci scrabbles for the book, wrapping it frantically, but the tongue has already crawled to the edge of the sarcophagus and drops to the floor with a sound like a wet kiss. It begins to drag itself toward Luca, leaving a glistening trail. Luca backs against a shelf. A marble hand from a broken saint topples and shatters at his feet. The tongue reaches his shoe, touches the leather, and whispers in his mother's voice, the voice she used when he was 5 and afraid of the dark. Come down, Luca. It's warm. We've been waiting for someone who still believes. Chiara grabs the oilcloth bundle and hurls it. The book hits the tongue dead center. There is a sound like steak dropped on hot iron. The tongue curls, blackens, and is still, but the damage is done. Ricci is weeping now. Great, silent sobs that shake his whole frame. It wasn't supposed to choose a substitute, he says. Bellini was perfect, ambitious, childless, ready. But you? He looks at Luca with something that might be pity or envy. You touched the seals. You gave it a taste, and it liked the flavor of doubt. From the darkness beyond the crypt door, the heartbeat answers, no longer patient. It is galloping now, and it is coming upstairs. Chiara snatches the wrapped book and shoves it inside her habit, against her own skin. We have to burn it, she says. Ricci laughs until he coughs blood. Burn it, child. That book has survived the sack of Rome, the Avignon papacy, Napoleon, 2 world wars, and every exorcism the church could throw at it. Fire only makes it hungry. Luca stares at the blackened tongue on the floor. It twitches once, then begins to inch toward him again. He backs toward the door. "We end this," he says, voice shaking but resolute. We go to the relic that bleeds. We find out why it refused Bellini, and we give it something it wants more than me. Ricci's eyes widen. "You'd volunteer?" "No," Luca says, stepping over the crawling tongue without looking down. "I'd make it choke." In the darkness behind them, the tongue whispers one last time, in a voice that is almost gentle. "See you soon, Luca. Bring friends." If you've made it this far, 6 chapters deep, with the taste of iron in your mouth and the candle burning low, look at the palms of your hands right now. Do you see it? That faint red line appearing across the center, like a seam waiting to be opened? Tell me in the comments. When did you first notice the book was writing your name too? Chapter 7. The Relic That Began to Bleed Again. The air in the crypt of the cadaver changes with the seasons, even 900 feet underground. In summer, it is dry and papery, the kind of dryness that makes your lips split and your sins feel light. In winter, it turns damp and heavy, like breathing through a shroud. But in November, always in November, something else wakes inside the stone. The temperature drops to the exact degree of a freshly dug grave, and the smell of river mud rises from nowhere, thick as memory. They reach the crypt at what should be dawn above ground, though no light has ever touched this place. Chiara leads with a lantern taken from the San Pietrini tool room, its beam cutting a trembling tunnel through absolute dark. Luca follows, the wrapped book pressed against his chest like a tumor he cannot cut out. Ricci shuffles behind, leaning on a cane carved from the wood of a coffin lid, muttering Latin under his breath that sounds more like pleading than prayer. The crypt is not on any tour. Not even the excavators know it exists anymore. It was sealed after the last time, after 896, when they dragged what was left of Pope Formosus out of his grave, propped the rotting corpse on a throne, and put it on trial for crimes the living had already forgotten. When the farce ended, they did not bury him again. They hid him, bricked him behind a false wall in the deepest level, dressed in the rags of his papal vestments, mouth sewn shut with gold thread so he could never testify again. The false wall is still there, but the mortar has crumbled to dust. Someone or something has been visiting. Chiara stops before the niche. The body is smaller than Luca expected, shriveled like a dried fig, skin the color of old parchment, fingers curled like burnt paper. The papal tiara, a crude iron mockery, sits crooked on the skull. The jaw has been wired shut, but the gold thread has rusted black, and the lips beneath are parted just enough to show teeth that look too white, too new. Ricci crosses himself with a hand that will not stop shaking. "Formosus," he whispers, "the one they called the Cadaver Pope. He was the first to refuse the feeding. Tried to break the cycle in 896. They made an example of him, dragged him from his tomb, dressed the corpse in the vestments, and asked it questions it could no longer answer." Luca steps closer. The lantern light catches something wet gleaming on the corpse's chin. Fresh blood, not a trickle, a steady flow, bright and arterial, bubbling up from between the sewn lips as if the dead man has just bitten his tongue. Chiara's breath catches. It's November, she says. It always starts in November. The blood pools in the hollow of the corpse's throat, then overflows, running down the shriveled chest in perfect rivulets that trace the embroidered keys of St. Peter on the rotting dalmatic. Where it touches the ancient fabric, the threads blacken and curl like burning hair. Luca's phone vibrates in his pocket. No signal this deep, yet a new notification flashes across the cracked screen. A video file sent from his own number. He presses play before he can think. The footage is from the Basilica security feed, time-stamped an hour ago. Cardinal Angelo Bellini, tall, silver-haired, the man whose name was written in wet ink for 2023, stands alone before the papal altar. He is praying, or pretending to. His lips move soundlessly. Then the floor beneath him ripples, just as it did for the Swiss guards. Bellini does not sink. Something rises to meet him. A hand, black, jointed wrong, fingers too long, emerges from the marble like a swimmer breaking the surface. It caresses Bellini's cheek with obscene tenderness, leaving a streak of something wet and shining. The cardinal's eyes roll back white. He smiles. The video ends in the crypt. The corpse of Formosus exhales, a sound like wind through a graveyard. The wired jaw creaks. The rusted gold thread snaps one by one, pinging against the stone like tiny bells. Luca backs away until his shoulders hit the wall. The corpse sits up, slowly, joints popping like green wood in a fire. The iron tiara tilts, then rights itself as if an invisible hand has adjusted it. The mouth, now free, opens wide, wider than the skull should allow, revealing a tongue that is not dried but plump and red, glistening. It speaks with the voice of every pope who ever volunteered, layered and wet. Bellini was refused. The body lurches forward off its slab, bones cracking as they remember how to move. The blood from its mouth is no longer dripping. It is pouring now, a fountain of crimson that defies the shriveled veins. Chiara drops the lantern. Darkness swallows them. In the blackout, there is only sound, the wet slap of bare feet on stone, the rustle of rotting vestments, and Ricci's high, keening prayer that breaks into a scream. Then the lantern rolls, rights itself, and the light flares back. Formosus stands 3 feet away. His eyes are not empty sockets. They are black mirrors reflecting every face in the room at once. Luca young and terrified, Chiara pale as milk, Ricci old and weeping. The corpse raises one hand, the skin splitting along the seams where it was once restitched after the trial, and presses 2 fingers to Cardinal Bellini's name on the list still visible in Luca's mind. Then, with terrible gentleness, it leans forward and kisses Ricci on the forehead, not lips to skin, lips through skin. The dead pope's mouth opens wide enough to engulf the old man's brow, and when it pulls away, there is a perfect black handprint seared into Ricci's flesh, the fingers spreading like roots beneath the surface. Ricci screams once, a sound that has been waiting 900 years to be born. The skin around the handprint begins to rot immediately, turning gray, then green, then black, spreading outward in pulsing rings like mold on bread. Veins darken and burst. Flesh sloughs away in wet sheets, revealing bone that is already pitted and ancient. Ricci collapses, clawing at his face as the rot races toward his eyes. Formosus turns to Luca. The corpse's mouth smiles, Teeth too white, too sharp. Your turn, substitute. It takes one step forward. The lantern explodes. In the final burst of light before absolute dark, Luca sees the corpse's chest cavity is not empty. Inside, where the heart should be, something beats, huge, veined, human but wrong, and it is wearing Cardinal Bellini's face. The darkness that follows is not empty. It is full of wet breathing and the soft, patient sound of something licking its lips. If you've followed me this far, 7 chapters beneath the marble, with the taste of river mud in your throat and the candle burned down to a stub, place your hand over your own forehead right now. Feel for the warmth, for the faint raised edges that weren't there an hour ago. Tell me in the comments. Friends, when did the handprint start to itch? Because the relic has begun to bleed again, and this time it's looking for fresh skin to wear. Chapter 8, The Pope's Private Nightmare. The Apostolic Palace is never truly asleep. It only pretends to breathe. At 3:33 a.m. on the morning of November 21st, 2023, the silence is so complete that the ticking of the antique clock in the papal bedroom sounds like gunfire. Pope Francis bolts upright in bed, sheets soaked with sweat that smells faintly of river mud and myrrh. His scream is not loud, never loud. The walls here have ears older than nations, but it is raw, torn from somewhere deeper than lungs. He clutches his chest. Inside, something moves. Not pain, not illness. Movement. A slow, deliberate shifting, as if a hand with too many joints is rearranging his ribs from within to make more room. The bedside lamp flickers on automatically, motion sensor installed after the last health scare. The room is exactly as it always is. Simple wooden crucifix above the bed. The faint scent of mate tea lingering from evening. The window overlooking the Cortile di San Damaso, where Swiss guards stand like statues who have forgotten how to blink. But the Pope is not alone. He feels it now, fully awake. The thing that has been whispering in his dreams for weeks has crossed the border between sleep and flesh. It began innocently enough, a warmth in his sternum during Mass, a taste of iron on the host, whispers in Latin that were not the gospel. He told himself it was age, arthritis of the soul, nothing more. Tonight the whispers have teeth. He swings his legs over the side of the bed, bare feet touching cold tile that suddenly feels warm, almost feverish. The heartbeat, Luca's heartbeat, Ricci's heartbeat, the Basilica's heartbeat, thrums through the floorboards, up through the soles of his feet, and settles behind his sternum like a second occupant stretching after a long journey. He stands. The bathroom door is ajar, a thin blade of light from the nightlight inside cutting across the carpet like a wound. He walks toward it. Each step is heavier than the last, as if gravity has decided to favor whatever is inside him now. The bathroom is small, humble, white tiles, simple sink, a mirror with a crack in the upper corner that has never been repaired because the Pope believes in bearing the marks of time. He turns on the tap. Cold water splashes his face. The water runs pink, not from his skin, from his eyes. Tears of blood, thin and bright, tracing paths down the lines age has carved in his cheeks. He looks up. In the mirror, his reflection smiles. It is not his smile. His real mouth is open in a silent scream, lips peeled back from teeth. that feel suddenly too small for the jaw trying to use them. But the reflection, his face, his eyes, his white cassock spotted with blood, smiles with gentle benevolence, the way he smiles at children during audiences. The reflection raises a hand and waves, slow and paternal. The real Pope tries to scream again. No sound emerges, only a wet gurgle, as if something is blocking his throat from the inside. The reflection leans closer to the glass. Its lips move. The voice is his own, but layered with every pope who ever fed the thing beneath. Jorge Mario, you were never the meal. You were the doorway. The pope staggers back. His reflection does not. It stays pressed against the inside of the mirror, palms flat on the glass from the other side, smiling wider now, teeth too white, too sharp, behind the reflection, in the mirror world bathroom. The tiles are not white. They are black marble veined with red, and the sink is overflowing with something thick and dark that might once have been wine. The reflection's eyes roll black. I refused Bellini, it says, voice bubbling like it's speaking through water. Too proud, too dry. But you invited me in every time you forgave a sinner, every time you opened the door to mercy. You let me wear your compassion like a skin. The Pope collapses to his knees. The heartbeat in his chest is no longer his. It is vast, ancient, hungry, and it is learning how to use his hands. He watches in horror as his own fingers, against his will, trace the sign of the cross on his forehead, but backwards, thumb first, leaving smears of blood that arrange themselves into an inverted tiara. The reflection laughs, his laugh, the one the world loves, warm and grandfatherly. Shh, Jorge. The church has fed me for 1,200 years, but tonight I feed myself. The mirror ripples. The reflection's hand pushes through the glass like it's water. It caresses the Pope's real cheek with fingers that are too cold, too long, nails crusted with old wax from 1,000 papal seals. The Pope feels it then, the truth that has been crawling toward him since the first warm spot appeared under the altar. The 2023 feeding was never meant for Bellini. Bellini was the decoy. The demon refused him because it had already chosen better flesh. Holy flesh, visible flesh. Flesh the entire world watches on television every Christmas and Easter. Flesh that can open doors no cardinal ever could. The hand withdraws back into the mirror. The reflection straightens, smooths the cassock's cassock that is no longer spotted with blood, spotless now, radiant. It winks. Tell the College of Cardinals, the consistory will be delicious. The mirror cracks from corner to corner. The Pope collapses forward, forehead striking the tile, when the Swiss guards burst in minutes later, responding to the silent medical alert triggered by his racing heart. They find him on the floor, unconscious, a perfect black handprint blooming across his forehead like a bruise from the inside out. His lips move, no sound, but if you were there, if you pressed your ear to his mouth as the medics lift him onto the stretcher, you would hear the faintest whisper, in a voice that is almost, but not quite, his own. Caro papai mea, the shepherd has become the feast, above them all. In the darkness of the papal bedroom, the cracked mirror shows an empty bathroom, except for one thing in the glass. The Pope is still standing, smiling, waiting, and if you've stayed with me through 8 chapters of descent, with the taste of blood in your mouth and the weight of something ancient pressing against your ribs, go to your own bathroom mirror right now. Turn off all the lights except one. Stare at your reflection until your eyes water. Then blink once, slowly. Tell me in the comments. Friends, when you opened your eyes again, whose smile were you wearing? Chapter 9, The Exorcist Who Came Too Late. The rain over Rome that night is not water. It is memory falling from the sky. It drums on the lead roof of the Casa Santa Marta like 1,000 fingernails begging to be let in. Inside the papal apartments, the air has turned thick, almost liquid, the way it does before a stroke. Medical monitors beep in frantic counter-rhythm to the heartbeat that now belongs to something older than the church itself. Father Mateo Ruiz arrives soaked, collar turned up against a wind that smells of the Tiber at low tide, rotting fish, and old sins. He is 47, Roman-born but trained in Mexico City under the man whose name still makes demons flinch, Father Gabriele Amorth. When the call came, the Holy Father is unwell in ways medicine cannot touch. Mateo was in Naples, exorcising a girl who spoke only in the voice of Pope Honorius. He left her mid-rite, rosary still smoking in his hand. He is let in through a side door no one admits exists. The Swiss guards who escort him are pale, eyes red from crying or from something worse. One of them, barely 20, halberd trembling, whispers in German, "It smiles when we pray. Father, the Pope smiles when we pray." Mateo does not answer. He has seen smiling demons before. They lead him past the papal bedroom, where doctors argue in hushed Italian about strokes and seizures and possible poisoning. The Pope lies on the bed, eyes open but unseeing, the black handprint on his forehead now pulsing like a bruise with its own circulation. Every few seconds, see his lips move. Caro, papai, mea. Mateo kneels, opens the small black case he has carried since Amorth's death. Inside, a violet stole, worn thin at the edges, a crucifix of olive wood from Gethsemane, a vial of holy water blessed by Pope Francis himself 3 years ago, before the water learned better, and the Rituale Romanum bound in skin that is definitely not calf. He begins the diagnostic rite, not the full exorcism, not yet, just the questions that separate the merely mad from the eternally occupied. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti, dic mihi nomen tuum. Tell me your name. The Pope's body arches off the bed, spine cracking like green wood. The monitors scream. Doctors rush forward. The Swiss guards hold them back with halberds that suddenly feel very small. The Pope's mouth opens. What comes out is not one voice, but hundreds. Every Pope who ever volunteered, speaking in perfect, wet unison. We have had so many names. Little Mexican, you may call us Legion, or you may call us Peter. We are still deciding. Mateo does not flinch. He has heard worse. He uncorks the vial of holy water and pours a single drop onto the Pope's forehead, directly over the black handprint. The water does not run. It beads, trembles, and begins to boil. Tiny bubbles rise from the drop, each one carrying a microscopic scream. The boiling spreads, racing across the Pope's skin in perfect Latin letters that spell themselves in steam before evaporating. Ego numquam, dissesi, Soli domicilium mutavi. I never left, I only changed addresses. The temperature in the room plummets 30 degrees in a heartbeat. Frost feathers across the windows. The doctor's breath fogs. One of them, a cardiologist from Milan, drops to his knees, crossing himself frantically. Matteo's stole lifts from his shoulders, as if caught in a wind no one else feels. The Pope's eyes roll forward. They are not his eyes. They are black from edge to edge, liquid, ancient, and in their depths, Matteo sees every feeding since Charlemagne. Popes on their knees in the dark beneath the Basilica. Throats opened willingly, blood drunk like communion from golden chalices that were never washed again. The thing-wearing Francis smiles with gentle, grandfatherly warmth. You are late, Father Ruiz, it says, in the Pope's own voice, soft and Argentine. The house has already been renovated. Matteo's hand goes to the crucifix. The wood burns him. He looks down. The olive wood Christ has twisted on the cross, arms wrenched free, head turned to stare up at him with eyes that are suddenly, impossibly, alive. It speaks with Amorth's voice, the real Amorth, dead these 7 years. Matteo, my son, it's inside the keys themselves. The keys open both ways. The crucifix bursts into blue flame that does not consume. Matteo drops it. On the bed, the Pope's body begins to laugh, the laugh the world knows from balconies and Christmas blessings, warm and full of mercy. But the mercy is gone now. Only hunger remains. The black handprint on the Pope's forehead splits open like a mouth. From it rises a thin tendril of darkness, tasting the air, reaching for Matteo's face with the idle curiosity of a child choosing candy. The Swiss guard nearest the bed raises his halberd. The tendril touches the blade. The steel rusts to powder in an instant. The guard screams as the rust spreads up the haft, into his gloves, under his skin, turning flesh to flaking red dust that rains onto the carpet. Matteo backs away until his shoulders hit the wall. The Pope sits up slowly, joints popping like gunfire. He swings his legs over the side of the bed, bare feet touching the floor that is suddenly warm, pulsing. The doctors are on their knees now, some praying, some simply weeping. The thing wearing the Pope stands. The black handprint has vanished from his forehead because it is no longer needed. The mark is on the inside now. It raises both hands in the gesture the world knows so well, the blessing of the Urbi et Orbi. But the words that come are older than any blessing. Venite, filii mei. The shepherd calls his flock to supper. Every monitor in the room flatlines at once. The lights die in the darkness. The heartbeat is no longer beneath the floor. It is in the walls, in the air, in the blood of every person in the room. And if you have listened through 9 chapters of Descent, if the rain outside your window sounds like fingernails and the warmth in your chest has begun to feel crowded, place your hand over your heart right now. Count the beats carefully. 1, 2, 3. Tell me in the comments. Friends, when did you first realize the rhythm inside you was answering in Latin? Chapter 10, The Feeding That Failed. Go back with me now, beneath the weight of 2,000 years of prayers and lies, to the night that should have ended the hunger, but only taught it a new way to feast. November 2nd, 2023, All Souls Day, the day the church remembers the dead, and the dead remember the church. 7 levels beneath the papal altar, deeper than the necropolis, deeper than the bones of Peter himself. There is a chamber no blueprint has ever dared to draw. The walls are not stone, they are packed earth still wet from the tears of ancient Rome. The air is so dense it has texture, like breathing through a tongue. A single black altar rises from the center, carved from a single block of obsidian dragged here in the time of Charlemagne. Its surface scarred with grooves that have never been washed clean. Cardinal Angelo Bellini is already waiting. He stands naked in the cold, wrists and ankles bound by chains forged from melted papal rings, gold fused with iron, warm to the touch because something in the metal remembers the fingers it once circled. His skin is gooseflesh, but not from fear alone. There is pride in the set of his shoulders, the way he lifts his chin even when the chains bite. He volunteered. He signed the book with blood drawn from his own tongue. He believes this is the ultimate act of service, to become the vessel that keeps the demon asleep for another 33 years. He is wrong. Around him stand the 7 who must witness Monsignor Ricci, younger than, face still smooth with the arrogance of a man who thinks he understands the bargain. 6 other cardinals in scarlet, watered down to black by the darkness, and 1 figure in white who should not be there at all, the Pope himself, frail, leaning on a cane, eyes wet because he knows what Bellini does not. The rite begins with silence, no Latin, no incense, only the heartbeat, slow and patient, rising through the floor like a whale surfacing beneath a fragile boat. Thump, thump. Bellini closes his eyes. He has prepared for this. Years of fasting, of mortification, of whispering to the dark that he is ready. He pictures his reward, 33 years of peace for the church. His name added to the list in red ink that never fades. The quiet certainty that he will be remembered as the one who gave everything. The heartbeat quickens. The obsidian altar begins to sweat something thicker than water. Bellini's chains slacken, just enough for him to kneel. He opens his mouth, not in prayer, in invitation. From the cracks in the floor rises the shadow. It is not darkness, it is the absence of light given form, liquid and jointed, taller than any man has a right to be. It has no face, only a suggestion of one, an oval void where features should be, framed by what might once have been a papal tiara made of writhing black tendrils. The temperature plunges so fast that the breath of every witness crystallizes midair and falls like snow. Bellini does not flinch. He has waited his entire life to be chosen. The shadow leans over him, intimate as a lover, and exhales a sound that is almost a sigh of gratitude. Bellini's eyes fill with tears, not of fear, but of ecstasy. This is it, the moment of union, the moment he becomes more than flesh. The shadow opens, not a mouth, something wider, a maw that unfolds like a black flower blooming in reverse, petals of living night peeling back to reveal a throat that goes down forever. It descends. Bellini's lips part wider, willingly, eagerly. The shadow pours itself into him, not as smoke, as liquid, cold, thick, alive. He feels it first in his mouth, the taste of every communion host ever desecrated, every throat ever cut in this room, then down his gullet, burning and freezing at once. His eyes roll white, his back arches so violently the chains sing. The witnesses watch in horrified silence. This is not how it is supposed to happen. The feeding has always been consumption, flesh torn, blood drunk, bones left clean for the next volunteer, never entry. Bellini's body convulses once, twice. His skin ripples as the shadow settles inside. Finding space where organs should be, he should be dead by now. He is not, instead. His ribcage begins to open, not with violence, with grace. The sternum splits along a seam that was never there before, bones peeling back like petals of a black rose, cartilage parting with soft, wet pops that echo in the chamber like champagne corks in hell. Skin stretches, thins, becomes translucent. The witnesses see inside him. There is no heart, no lungs, only darkness, a breathing void that inhales and exhales with the slow, satisfied rhythm of something that has finally come home after 12 centuries of starvation. Bellini's eyes open. They are not his eyes anymore. They are every pope who ever volunteered, looking out from the same sockets, layered like ghosts, trapped in glass. He smiles. The expression is gentle, almost paternal. Then he speaks, and the voice is a choir of the willing dead. Thank you, Angelo. You were the perfect doorway. His ribcage closes with a sound like a book snapping shut. The chains fall away, melted to slag. Bellini stands, naked, unmarked, radiant. The Pope, the real one, still watching from the shadows, takes one involuntary step forward, cane clattering to the floor. Bellini turns to him and bows, not as a cardinal to his pontiff, as a host to his guest. In the silence that follows, the heartbeat beneath the basilica stops. For the first time in 1,200 years, it is quiet, because it no longer needs to wait below. It is upstairs now, wearing better clothes, and if you have followed me through 10 chapters of descent, if the cold beneath your ribs has begun to feel like company, if the taste of iron is suddenly familiar on your tongue, go to the nearest mirror right now. Look at your bare chest, watch it rise and fall, then press your ear to your own sternum and listen very carefully. Tell me in the comments, friends, when did you first hear it breathing back? Chapter 11, The Voice on the Intercom. The Vatican has 1,000 tongues, and on the morning of November 26, 2023, every single one of them begins to speak with the same mouth. It starts small. A Swiss guard in the radio room hears static that resolves into a whisper, soft, intimate, the way a lover murmurs just before the knife goes in. The voice is Cardinal Bellini's, but stretched, layered, as though recorded in a cathedral full of him. Triginta tres, 33. The guard thinks it's a prank. He adjusts the dial. The whisper follows, across the city-state. In the confessionals of St. Peter's, penitents freeze mid-sin. From the grated screen comes the same voice, intimate as breath against the ear. Triginta duo. 32. An old woman in the left transept drops her rosary. The beads scatter like teeth. In the Vatican pharmacies, the intercom that normally announces closing time crackles and says, in perfect ecclesiastical Latin, Triginta unus. 31. Tourists laugh nervously, thinking it's part of the experience, some immersive art installation, perhaps. Phones come out. Videos begin recording in the papal apartments. The Pope, the real one, or what is left of him, sits propped in a wheelchair, eyes vacant. The black handprint now faded to a bruise that never quite heals. His hearing aid, a discreet flesh-colored curve, emits a soft pop. Then Bellini's voice, gentle, paternal, directly into the canal of his ear. Triginta, 30. The Pope's head jerks. A thin line of blood leaks from his ear like a red tear. Below, in the archives, Luca hears it through the ancient PA system that hasn't worked since 1968. Chiara hears it in the bones of her rosary, each bead clicking out a number in a different dead language: Aramaic, Coptic, Ge'ez, Old Church Slavonic. Ricci hears it inside the scar on his arm, the tissue pulsing like a second mouth, trying to form words. And every countdown is off by one. Different speakers, different languages, different moments, never synchronized, always overlapping, always closer. The city becomes a choir of one voice counting down to 0 in fragments. Panic spreads like incense. Pilgrims flood St. Peter's Square for the Sunday Angelus, drawn by rumor and live streams. Something is happening, something big. The balconies are packed. Cameras from every network in the world point upward, waiting for the familiar figure in white to appear and give the blessing that has ended every Angelus for 10 years. The bells begin to ring noon. The Pope is wheeled out. He looks frail but serene, hands folded in his lap, the smile the world knows and loves already in place. The crowd hushes. He raises his right hand in the gesture of blessing. The square holds its breath, and then the countdown reaches convergence. Every speaker in Vatican City, the great bells themselves, the confessionals, the radios, the hearing aids, the phones, the live feeds, falls silent for exactly 3 heartbeats. The Pope opens his mouth. What comes out is not Latin. It is every Pope who ever screamed when the knife went in, every volunteer whose throat was opened willingly on the black altar, every voice that has been swallowed for 12 centuries, released at once in a roar that sounds like the foundations of the world cracking open. It is not loud. It is vast. 1,000 throats tearing at once, layered into a single note of pure, triumphant hunger. The sound lasts exactly 3.33 seconds. In that time, the sky over Rome darkens, as though a cloud has passed that has no business being there. Every screen broadcasting the Angelus, televisions in 1 million living rooms, phones in the square, the giant jumbotrons in St. Peter's itself, shows the same thing. The Pope's face splitting open from hairline to chin, not with blood, but with darkness. A vertical mouth that smiles wider than bone should allow, revealing rows of teeth that were never human. Then the feeds cut to static, every single one, worldwide, at the exact same instant. When the picture returns 30 seconds later, the Pope is blessing the crowd as if nothing happened, voice calm, Italian accent warm, eyes kind. But in the front row, a child is screaming, pointing at the balcony, because for those who were there in person, the sound did not stop at 3:33 seconds. It went on and on until the marble beneath their feet began to sweat blood. In the archives, Luca's phone, still recording, always recording, captures the moment the countdown hits 0. There is no explosion, only a sigh, the sigh of something that has finally come home after 1,200 years of waiting in the dark. Kiara drops to her knees, rosary snapping, beads rolling across the floor like tiny skulls. Ricci begins to laugh, high and broken, blood bubbling from his lips, because he understands now. The feeding never failed. It evolved. The demon did not want another body to consume and discard. It wanted a voice the entire world would listen to without question, a face billions would kneel before, a hand that could make the sign of the cross on global television while opening the wrong door from the inside. The countdown was never for Bellini. It was for us. And if you have listened through 11 chapters of Descent, if the silence after the scream feels heavier than sound, if the warmth in your chest has begun to arrange itself into words you do not remember learning, open your mouth right now. Whisper the number that comes next, out loud. Then check the comments below, because I am not the only one counting anymore, and 0 was only the beginning. Chapter 12. The night the eternal flame went out. The power dies at 1917 exactly, though no clock in St. Peter's will ever admit it again. One moment the Basilica is a golden hive. Evening Mass just ended. Tourists lingering under the floodlit baldacchino. Priests in black cassocks drifting like crows toward the sacristy. The great eternal flame above the confession of St. Peter flickering steady and proud as it has every minute since 1871. The next moment, every watt of electricity in the largest church on earth simply forgets how to exist. Not a brownout, not a surge, a vanishing, the floodlights, the chandeliers, the hidden LEDs in the Pietà niche, the red sanctuary lamp that has never once gone dark in living memory. All of them surrender at once. The eternal flame gutters, folds in on itself like a dying star, and is gone. Absolute darkness swallows 15,000 people whole. For 3 heartbeats, there is only the collective inhale of shock, the rustle of coats and rosaries, a child somewhere beginning to cry. Then the dragging starts. It comes from beneath the floor, a wet, deliberate sound, like a soaked corpse being pulled across marble by its ankles, slow, patient, coming closer, schlock, schlock, schlock. It is everywhere and nowhere, echoing under the nave, under the transept, under the very chair of Peter. The marble transmits it perfectly, the way a drumskin carries the blow. People freeze, phones come out, useless bricks, screens black, batteries inexplicably drained to 0. The dragging grows louder, joined by a second source, then a third, a wet chorus moving in different directions, but always toward the center, toward the confessionals that line the side aisles like dark wooden teeth. A woman near the pillar of Saint. Longinus whispers the act of contrition so fast the words trip over themselves. An American teenager laughs once, high, hysterical, before his mother's hand clamps over his mouth. The dragging stops. Silence falls again, heavier this time, the kind of silence that has weight and temperature and taste. Someone risks a whisper. Gesù, Giuseppe, e Maria. The emergency lights kick in, not the gentle amber glow the system is designed for. A sick, blood-red strobing, 1 second on, 1 second off, like the Basilica has been wounded and is trying to breathe. In the first flash, everything looks normal. In the darkness that follows, the dragging resumes, faster now, Eager. Second flash. The confessionals are occupied. Every single one. The wooden doors that were empty moments ago now stand ajar. And inside each kneeler sits a figure, translucent, as though carved from smoke and old candle wax. They wear the vestments of popes, some in the triple tiara of the Middle Ages, some in the simple white of modern times. But the tiaras are wrong. They are made of human vertebrae, spines threaded together like beads, still dripping marrow, clicking softly as the figures turn their heads, in perfect, eerie unison toward the terrified crowd. Their faces are the faces of the volunteers. Every pope who ever knelt on the black altar and opened his throat willingly. Leo III, Pascal, Formosus with his mouth that's sewn shut by gold thread that now hangs in ragged loops. John the Tuned with the smirk that history never forgave. All the way down to faces so recent the crowd recognizes them from television. They smile with mouths that have no lips, only teeth and too many teeth. The red strobe flashes again. The figures are standing now. They move without walking, gliding forward through the wooden grills as though the confessionals were never solid at all. A tourist in the front row, a girl from Wisconsin, phone still raised in frozen hope, is the first to be touched. One of the translucent popes places a hand on her shoulder. The hand passes straight through her jacket, through muscle, through bone, and rests against her heart. She gasps once, a sound like air escaping a tomb, and her eyes roll white when the hand withdraws. There is a perfect black handprint blooming beneath her shirt, spreading across her chest like spilled ink. She collapses. The strobe flashes. Half the confessionals are empty again. The figures are among the crowd now, moving between bodies with the gentle patience of priests hearing confession wherever they touch. The black handprint appears wherever the handprint appears. The heartbeat, the one that has followed Luca since chapter 1, syncs perfectly with the victim's own, then overtakes it. People begin to scream. The sound is swallowed by the marble, by the darkness, by the wet dragging that has become a tide. Luca is there, near the Pietà, Chiara's hand locked in his. Ricci slumped against a column bleeding from ears and eyes. They watch a bishop in purple try to perform an impromptu exorcism. The translucent pope nearest him, one of the Renaissance ones, fat and smiling, leans close and whispers something that makes the bishop's rosary burst into blue flame. The man drops to his knees, clawing at his cassock as the black handprint spreads across his chest like mold on bread. In the strobing red light, the basilica has become a charnel house. Bodies lie where they fell, some still twitching, some already still, all marked. The dragging beneath the floor has stopped, because whatever was dragging no longer needs to move. It is here, among them, wearing their skin like new vestments. The emergency lights flicker once more, weaker now, dying. In the final pulse of red, Luca sees the figure closest to him. It is Bellini, or what is left of him, translucent, radiant, wearing the cardinal's scarlet as though it was always meant to be a funeral shroud. He places a hand over Luca's heart. The touch is gentle, almost loving. Luca feels the black handprint bloom beneath his shirt, warm as fresh blood. Bellini leans close, lips brushing Luca's ear, and whispers in a voice that is every volunteer and none of them. Shh, little substitute, Your confession is almost over. The lights die for good. In the absolute dark that follows, 15,000 people hear the same thing at once. A soft, wet kiss against marble, then the heartbeat, not beneath the floor anymore, inside every chest that still beats, perfectly synchronized, perfectly owned. And if you have made it this far, 12 chapters beneath the marble, with the red emergency glow still flickering behind your eyelids and the taste of wax on your tongue. Stand up right now, walk to the darkest room in your house, close the door, stand very still, and wait for the lights to go out, because somewhere, in a city that was never yours, the eternal flame has just gone dark, and whatever took its place is looking for new candles to wear. Tell me in the comments, friends, when the darkness finds you tonight, whose handprint will you feel first? Chapter 13, The Cardinal Who Changed His Mind. The air in the abandoned sacristy has the texture of a lung that has forgotten how to exhale. Robes hang from hooks like flayed skins, stiff with centuries of incense and old blood. A single candle, stolen from the altar of St. Gregory, gutters on a cracked credenza, throwing light that crawls rather than shines. Outside, Rome is burning with panic, sirens, helicopters, the distant roar of a city that has just watched its holiest man open his mouth and scream with 1,000 dead voices. Inside this room, 3 people try to commit the one sin the church has never found a way to forgive. It's Cardinal Angelo Bellini kneels in the center of the floor, naked again, but not the proud nakedness of the failed feeding. This is the nakedness of a man whose skin no longer fits. The black handprint that once marked victims now spreads across his entire torso like spilled ink under rice paper, veins pulsing beneath in rhythms that do not match his breathing. His eyes, once the cold blue of ambition, are windows into something vast and starving that looks out with polite curiosity. Luca stands over him, kitchen knife from the Swiss Guard mess trembling in his fist. The blade is ordinary steel, blessed by a dying priest an hour ago with water that boiled the moment it touched the metal. Chiara is at the door, back pressed to the wood. Rosary wrapped so tightly around her knuckles, the beads have cut half moons into her skin. Her lips move without sound, Ave Maria, over and over, faster and faster until the words lose meaning and become only terror. Bellini's voice, when it comes, is barely a thread. Luca, please. It is his voice, the real Bellini, the man who once dreamed of wearing white, not the layered chorus, not yet. I can feel it, rearranging me. It's learning how to want what I want. Soon there will be no difference. Soon it will wear my memories like gloves. A tear rolls down his cheek, but when it reaches the black handprint, it sizzles and evaporates. I was proud, he whispers. I thought I would be the last, the perfect offering, clean, willing, but it didn't want to eat me, Luca. It wanted to become me, and now his chest hitches with a sob that sounds like tearing paper. Now it's learning how to love what I loved, my mother's face, the smell of incense on Easter morning, the way the light falls through the oculus at Pentecost. It's tasting them, and it likes the flavor. Luca's hand shakes so badly, the knife point dances across Bellini's sternum, leaving thin red lines that heal almost as fast as they open. I can't. Lucas says. His own voice cracks like the boy he was before all this began. You're still in there. Bellini laughs, a sound like bones rubbed together. For now, but listen. He takes Luca's free hand and presses it to the center of the black handprint. Under the skin, something vast moves. Not a heart, something larger. It has chambers, valves, arteries that branch into darkness. It beats once, slow, deliberate, curious, and Luca feels the rhythm echo in his own chest like a memory he never lived. It's building a new one. Bellini breathes, out of what it took from all of us, from the Swiss guards, from the tourists, from the Pope himself. It's almost finished. When it is, I'll be the cloak it wears to walk in daylight. Chiara's rosary snaps. Beads scatter across the floor like hail on a coffin lid. Bellini's eyes fill with real tears now. Human tears, precious because they are the last. Do it, Luca, before I start to like what it wants. Before I help it open the doors I spent my life guarding. Luca raises the knife. The candle flares, throwing their shadows huge against the wall. 3 figures, but only 2 hearts beating. He brings the blade down. It slides between Bellini's ribs with the soft resistance of warm wax. Bellini gasps, a sound of pure gratitude. Luca twists, pulls the knife free. The blade comes out clean, not a drop of blood. Bellini looks down at the wound that isn't there. His chest is smooth, unmarked, the black handprint already fading as though embarrassed by the failure. He smiles, a small, terrible smile of relief and horror combined. Thank you, he whispers. Then his chest splits open anyway, not with violence, with invitation. The skin parts along the sternum like theater curtains, peeling back wetly, silently, revealing not bone and muscle, but a cavity of perfect darkness. From that darkness rises a sound, wet, rhythmic, growing. Thump, thump. The heart is gone, stolen, relocated. Bellini's body slumps forward, empty as a discarded robe. From beneath the floor, far below, deeper than the crypts, deeper than the black altar, comes an answer, a single beat, then another, stronger, larger. The entire sacristy trembles. Dust sifts from the ceiling like grave soil. Chiara screams, one short, sharp note that dies in her throat. Luca stares at the knife in his hand, clean, ordinary, useless. Bellini's body twitches once, then speaks with the layered voice of the thing that has finally found the perfect size. Thank you, substitute. The new heart needed a name. Yours will do nicely. The candle goes out. In the darkness, the dragging begins again, closer now, intimate, directly beneath their feet. And something vast and newborn turns over in its sleep, dreaming with Luca's memories. If you have walked this far with me, 13 chapters into the dark beneath the marble, with the taste of someone else's blood in your mouth and the echo of a knife that found nothing, place the palm of your hand over your own heart right now. Feel it beat, once, twice, then wait. Because somewhere beneath the holiest city on earth, something much larger has just decided to keep time with you. Tell me in the comments, friends. When the rhythm changes, whose name will it whisper first? Chapter 14, and if you are listening at 3:33 a.m., the silence that follows the end is not empty. It is swollen, pregnant with the weight of every breath you have taken while listening, every pause where you pressed your fingers to your pulse and wondered if the rhythm had always been yours alone. Luca sits in the vast, echoing nave of St. Peter's Basilica, the place that was once the beating heart of a billion souls' faith, now nothing more than a hollow shell waiting to be filled. The marble beneath him is no longer cold. It radiates a gentle, living warmth, the kind that seeps into bones and makes a home there. His knees are drawn up to his chest, arms wrapped around them as if he could hold himself together by sheer will. But he knows better now. The knife lies discarded beside Bellini's empty husk of a body, the chest cavity still yawning open like a mouth that has finished its meal and is now content to smile at the stars. Chiara's rosary beads are scattered across the floor like tiny, abandoned bones, each one catching the faint, sickly glow that emanates from nowhere and everywhere, the light of something that has learned how to illuminate from the inside out. Luca's phone, that faithful companion through every descent, every whisper, every scream, rests face up on the marble in front of him. The screen is cracked in the perfect shape of an inverted cross, but the recording light is still on, red and steady, unblinking. He has not pressed stop. He never will, because stopping would mean admitting that the story ends here, in this tomb of a church, with him as the last witness. But stories like this do not end. They metastasize. They learn to live in new hosts. He lifts his head slowly, as though the air itself has thickened into something viscous, something that resists movement because it wants to keep him still, keep him listening. His eyes, once bright with the curiosity of a young seminarian from Boston, the kind of eyes that believed in redemption and second chances, are dulled now, ringed with black veins that pulse in time with the greater rhythm that owns him. He stares directly into the phone's camera, and when he speaks, his voice is soft, almost tender, the way a parent speaks to a child who has finally come home after wandering too far in the dark. "If you're still here," he says, and there is a smile in his voice now, small and terrible. "If you've stayed with me through every chapter, every heartbeat, every moment where you felt that warmth in your chest and told yourself it was just the story getting to you, thank you, truly, from the bottom of whatever is left of my heart. Thank you." He leans forward slightly, and the candle that should have burned out hours ago flares brighter, throwing his shadow across the baldacchino high above, a shadow that is no longer entirely human, too tall, too jointed, with edges that blur into the darkness like ink in water. "You see, I thought I was the substitute, the spare, the one it would wear until it figured out how to walk in the daylight without casting the wrong kind of shadow. I touched the seals. I let the parchment drink from me. I carried the book. I stabbed the cardinal when he begged me to end it. I thought all of that made me special, chosen, damned." A pause. The heartbeat fills it, slow and deliberate, the way a cat breathes when it is curled on your lap and dreaming of the hunt. But I was wrong. It never needed another pope, another cardinal, another priest or nun or curious seminarian stumbling into doors that were meant to stay bricked up forever. Those were just appetizers, ways to pass the time while it waited for the real feast. He spreads his hands, palms up, and in the flickering light, you can see the black handprints blooming across them, spreading like frost on glass, fingers elongating, merging, becoming something that is no longer entirely his. You, every single one of you who pressed play, every time you paused to feel the floor, every time you counted the beats with me, every time you whispered, "It's just a story," while the warmth spread a little further under your ribs. You fed it, not with blood, not with flesh. Those are crude, finite. You fed it with attention, with belief, with the one thing no seal, no prayer, no exorcism has ever been able to lock away: the willingness to listen in the dark. Luca's smile widens, and for a moment it is almost gentle, almost the smile of the young man who once believed he could save the world one confession at a time. It doesn't need the Vatican anymore. The Basilica is just an old skin it outgrew. The popes were rehearsal. The countdown was the invitation. And you... His voice drops to a whisper that seems to come from inside your own skull. You accepted. He places one hand over his chest. The heartbeat answers immediately, vast and ancient, but perfectly synchronized with the one you feel beneath your own ribs right now. Thump, thump. Can you feel it? That second rhythm, that second heart. It isn't mine anymore. It never really was. It's ours, and it's learning your memories, your fears, the way you taste when you're afraid in the dark, the sound your heartbeat makes when you realize the story isn't over just because the video ends. He leans closer to the camera until his face fills the screen, eyes black from edge to edge, liquid and depthless. Some of you will try to stop listening now. You'll rip the headphones out, smash the phone, burn the device, pray, scream, run. It won't matter because you already let it in, and it likes the way you listen. It likes the way you care. It likes the way your heart races when you realize the next story hasn't started yet, but it will, soon, at 3:33 a.m., when the house is quiet, when the world is asleep, when there is nothing between you and the dark but the memory of my voice. The screen flickers. For a single frame, so fast you will convince yourself you imagined it. Luca's face is not Luca's anymore. It is yours. Then the video ends, but the heartbeat does not. It keeps going. Thump, thump. Perfectly synchronized, perfectly patient, waiting for you to press play again, because the demon never needed another pope. It needed a congregation, and now it has one that will never stop listening. Tell me, can you feel it right now? That second heartbeat that isn't yours? And when it whispers your name for the first time, will you answer?